Hey guys, welcome back to the Perpetuo podcast. I know it's been a while since I've hopped on the mic here, but a lot's been going on recently, and if you can guess from the episode title, there's a lot I kind of want to uncover in today's episode regarding recent happenings, work, mental health, everything that you might have seen on my socials if you follow me, just to keep you guys updated with what's been going on and kind of give hopefully some advice to those people that might be struggling with a similar thing right now. I'm going to get straight into it. The last few months have been hard, and with those people that I've been speaking to about what's been going on with me, a lot of people are feeling a very similar thing at the moment. And first of all, that's a great thing. Well, not great, but it's a relief that other people can also feel this kind of stress and kind of frustration and this feeling of failure, I guess, with work, with mental health and everything on top of that. And a lot of people my age, and I know that today's episode might relate to a few of you, as most of you listening are a similar age to me as well, early 20s, late 20s, and it's a big thing that no one speaks about with how work can affect your mental health. The last few months have been awful, and I know I'm only 21, nearly 22, I'm only 21, and maybe giving kind of career advice or advice that I'm going to try and give in today's episode might not be the right thing to do, as I'm quite young and, I've only been working for 2 years, but it's still something that is very close to my heart at the moment. As much as I don't want to make it about kind of what I'm going through mental health wise, I want this episode to be more about advice and what I wish I knew before going into this kind of thing. But the last few months, as I've said, have been really hard with my recovery. It's been a nightmare, to be honest, and I've had so many, I'm not out of a relapse, I've been in a relapse for quite a while, and it's just been going up and down, but not going like up, it's like middle and down in a way, and it's been hard. And the main thing that's impacted that is obviously work. I'm an overachiever, perfectionist, workaholic, all those things that are often connected to people with anorexia or other eating disorders, and it's a very common thing to have because it's that sense of control and that idea of we can't fail, we can't be unproductive. It's that need to be productive all the time, which leads to toxic productivity, burnout, and then you feel like you have failed because you have to rest. And it's all these things that make recovery and everything else in your life so hard, because we can connect it to your ED, but at the same time you were an overachiever before your ED came along. So I've been working quite hard recently to detach the two, because as I said before, having that identity that I'm the girl with the ED, for example, is something that is still like detrimental to me in my recovery. Like, it's not helping me recover. So at the end of the day, if I was to describe me, not the girl with the ED, but the girl who's a workaholic. And because of that, I have had to quit my job. That's quite a blunt way to say it, but because of my mental health and physical health, everything, I've had to leave a job that I love so much, so dearly, after 8 months. And it's sad, it's so sad that and it's not like, I feel like I have to leave, it's I need to leave this business, I need to leave this company, and it's really got to me recently, not because of a feeling of failure. I don't think, to be fair, I'm quite proud of myself that I haven't gone down that rabbit hole of thinking, oh my god, I failed again, what am I going to do, I'm lost, all those feelings I've not really felt. It's more that I'm sad for myself, maybe my past self, future self, whatever, but I'm sad for myself right now that I've had to make that call because I'm not well. I'm not putting the blame fully on me or the company or etc., but the company I was at didn't help with that mental health. I went to my line manager months ago when this all started happening, saying what was going on, saying I was struggling. But because then of that stress of I'm struggling, but I still need to work and I can't have time off, even though I was given a day off. But, with ED's recovery, it's not necessarily a day off sorts it all out like it does with a cold, for example. It's a mental thing. Because of all that stress that I put on myself, that it probably was, oh my God, I had a day off, I have to do loads of work now. Because of that stress, I was making mistakes. I was slipping up. And I spoke to my manager about this. I was like, okay, right, this has been happening over the course of 2 weeks has happened. And, of course, she was concerned with my performance. And I was like, okay, completely understand that. That I'm going through things. That I'm going through a very hard time and I shouldn't bring it to work. But obviously I am, and the stress. And I was very open with the team, etc. But because I was working in the first kind of corporate business, I've not really worked corporately before. If you know the brand I worked for, like, you wouldn't think it is corporate, but it does feel very corporate. Yeah, we wear jeans in the office, but it's a very, like, there's massive hierarchy, massive system like that. Like that, I'd never speak to the directors kind of thing, like I would at other companies. And because of the brand itself, you know, they pride themselves off well-being and being healthy, being mentally well as well. And that's, you know, campaigns they do all the time, and the company really believes in that too. And I was aware of that when I joined. I told them about my condition. I told them, you know, like, I am working for a gym brand, so I want to make sure you're aware of, you know, my past struggles and current struggles, and very, very helpful at the time. And I didn't know when they told me that when you're struggling, ask for help. I thought that was something that they had to say, and I couldn't ask for help. And I'm someone who doesn't ask for help. I'm a very independent worker, and asking for help is something which I deem as failing. Not right now, obviously, you know, I did do all that, and it just reinforced in my mind that when I did ask for help, they were helpful in that moment, but then it was kind of taken away from me after that. Long story short, particularly my line manager at that company wasn't helpful. She wasn't supportive, even though she was, at that very time back in February, she was amazing. HR were very helpful too, and I really felt like I had that support behind me. A few months ago, that support went, it diminished, I have no idea where it went. And the relationship I had with my direct manager just completely deteriorated. We had no working relationship at all. There was so much toxicity between us, and obviously that was just making my mental health worse. I don't know if she was going through something herself. It seems like she was. Obviously I was going through something too, and it wasn't working. I went to my other boss, my actual boss, about it, and he was very aware of what was going on. He was very honest with me as well. We had a half-hour chat about everything, and I said to him, I was like, look, I'm concerned about my future here. I don't think I'm going to be staying, whether that's on your part or my part, because of mixed signals I was getting from my manager with my probation period coming up. And so the last month has been so difficult, and I voiced this to him, and the fact that he was aware of it as well made me feel a bit better, but also nothing changed. So I had to come to the decision that I had to resign. Earlier I said I quit my job. I don't like using that phrase. I resigned. I chose to leave for my mental health, which honestly, me last year before, I would never ever be able to do that. And I'm getting a bit emotional on that part now. Like, I am very proud of myself for being able to show up for myself and say, okay, enough is enough. And I'm not trying to blame, obviously, like, the company for this, but it was an awful time. And okay, yeah, it's that kind of thing where you could either stick it out and stay there, or you can choose to leave for your mental health. And I was fully aware when I joined the company that, as I said, it's a gym brand, and given my history and relationship with the gym, it might not have been the most productive place for me to go to for recovery. And even my dad noticed that, and he was like, why do you keep going for jobs in the wellness or fitness industry? And that's what I've been doing. And he's like, it's just going to make it worse. And this time it has. But I've realised that myself too, which is a great thing. So, you know, I've been applying to jobs that are definitely not in the wellness space or anything that could trigger me. Obviously, there's always going to be triggers, I know. But definitely try and do my best to try and stay out of that space, because it's not helpful. Like, obviously, I know before my ED, I was obsessed with wellness and fitness in a healthy way. You know, I loved sport, I love movement, I loved all of those things, to be healthy, to be mentally well as well. And it came to a point where I just could no longer do it. And because of all this going on at work, I decided, I had a probation extension, which is where this all kind of stemmed from. And, you know, I decided to resign because the last month, well, longer than this month, it's been the last 2 months, or even back in February as well. But especially the last month, I have been, and I do cry a lot. You know, I show my emotions quite a lot, but I had been crying non-stop every single day. I was ill. I had a chest infection for a week, which was obvious, by the way, which I can't expect people to be like, are you okay? But on Teams calls, you know, I sat there looking. I know it's body dysmorphia or whatever, like, you think you look worse than you are, but no, trust me, I looked awful. My mum was like, you're not well. But I couldn't ask for time off because I thought that would go against me. So I worked and worked from like 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. every single day during this extension, which, like, literally for what? I could have saved that time. I could have felt okay, or at least better than I did, but I pushed myself to that limit because I thought that's what I had to do. But then with recent discussions I had with my line manager, it was clear that they were going to fire me anyway. So that's another reason why I left. I was like, well, I don't want to get fired. For what reason, I still don't know. And that's what really annoys me. I was just being pushed out of the business, you know. She didn't like me, she had to make that call, but my boss wasn't aware that that was the thing. Like, he wasn't aware that that was going on. But anyway, without ranting about that, but throughout the last month, I had been ill. I had been so stressed. I wasn't sleeping because I was working on a Sunday and working literally in the night. I'd wake up at like 1 a.m. and think, oh my God, I've got to work. I was working non-stop. Bearing in mind, I have other things like this podcast, my blog. I've got client work to do. I should be finishing at 5 o'clock, maybe 5:30 latest, but no, I wasn't eating as well, which is, obviously I don't want to get into all of that, but I thought I had no time to eat, which was the issue. And my mum was like, Ellie, you have time to eat. If I did eat, I'd bring it to my desk and, you know, eat some of it while I was working. But I didn't have time to eat, which is the worst thing. And I could have told, like, my boss this, I could have done all that, but, it, you know, they'd be like, well, that's up to you. It's up to you to work that much. Like, you know what I mean? It would have come back that way. But I felt like I couldn't ask for that help. I couldn't say, hey, look, I'm really struggling right now. Because I was in probation. Like, I was, you know, under fire. And that's why it was such a horrible experience. Like, I'm not explaining it properly to you. And you might think, well, that's just work. It's not. And there's so many other things that has happened, which I'm obviously not going to share everything that's happened, but the main reason that I left is that I could no longer work somewhere that I didn't feel supported by my manager, was the reason. And it was so sad. Like, I went into the office, so I handed my notice in on Sunday, because I just wanted to get it done. I was going to go into the office on the Monday and talk to my boss, and say, look, I'm quitting, I can leave now. And in a way I wish I did, because I had to go up yesterday, but it's not yesterday. I had to go up Tuesday to hand in all my equipment, and, you know, I had to go to Leeds. It was a 6-hour round trip to be there for 10 minutes, but it was worth it, I guess, to get that closure, because my dad said, well, you can always ask someone to come get it from you or post it, because you can say, look, I don't feel comfortable being in the office. And, you know, I could have done that, but, you know, I'm not going to make someone else drive 3 hours to come get it, or 6 hours to come get it. So I went up, and it was sad, but in my resignation I said, I'm not going to work my notice period. I want this to be accepted as immediate effect so that I could just get out. Because I do have another job offer. Starting the 7th of July, I believe. I do have this job offer, and it is the same kind of job, working with ads, working in social media, but for a company that is nothing to do with fitness or wellness, which is what I wanted. And, you know, I've been having loads of interviews recently, and I also made this aware at my job. I made this very aware to certain people. I was like, look, I am interviewing, to try and get them to be like, you're fine, you don't need to go. But I felt like I had to leave, and no, I had to leave. It's not like I felt like I had to get out of there. But I've been doing loads of interviews and talking to some really amazing companies, and this one came through, and it's based in London, which is not an issue, but it's the only thing to be concerned about cost-wise, because where I live, it's only a 2-hour drive to London, but trains are like £70 return, honestly. And the timing, it would still be getting up at 4:30 like I'm doing now to Leeds, and it's twice a week, but it's worth it, I think. And obviously on a train, I don't have to drive. Like, I wouldn't be as tired. I can have a nap, I can work on the train. It's that kind of thing where everyone commutes to London, you know, everyone gets tubes. If you're late, everyone understands. It's very different, but this company is even more corporate, and it's a massive company, and I'm really excited for it. I'm really, really excited, because it's something which is going to really test me. It's more fast-paced, and with me saying all of this with work, like, I absolutely love my job, and I really want to make that clear that I loved my job so much, which makes it so sad that I had to leave. Like, I could use my language skills in it, I could use my creative skills in it, also my analytical skills. Like, it was my dream job. And I also made that clear at the time to my boss when I was leaving. I was like, look, this was my dream job, and now I have to leave. The company that I'm going to don't necessarily want languages. I mean, I've always kind of fallen into a job where I end up using them anyway. But maybe this will be good for me because it'll be completely different, working in the same kind of role, but completely different. And it's scary being like, shit, this is more corporate, this is more formal, this is going to really test me. But I do thrive off fast-paced environments. I thrive off of a challenge. I really enjoy that, as long as I know that I have a team around me to support me. In the final interview, I was doing a presentation task, and questions at the end, they asked me questions about the presentation and, my ideas, etc. Then they asked me some, only a few other questions, because we had an interview about my experience before. And one of the questions they asked me was, there's two that stuck out to me. I might have had them before in other interviews, but they really stuck out to me. One, which is the best one, was, how do you like to be managed? What kind of management style do you like? And I replied, I need support. I need to know that if I do have a problem, if I do have something that I can't figure out, if I need some help, I want to know that I can go to someone and they can help me, rather than being like, oh, you should know how to do this by now. I want someone who's just there to just help me, because sometimes you forget things, sometimes you don't know how to do things. And they liked that answer, and they were like, yeah, well, that's how we want to do it. And I said, don't like micromanagers either. And they're like, no, we don't do that. It's like, great. And then the other question they asked was, so it was something like, how do you contribute to the team? Or what makes you different in the team? Because, I mean, I've had to do this for a few job interviews in the past, where they ask you to do the personality test, if you're ENFJ, or, that test where you have that acronym, number, letter thing next to your name. Had to do one of them, which I love doing anyway. And they obviously read through that, I think, and they asked me, how would you describe yourself in a team? What do you add to a team? And I started answering it in a kind of professional way, I've got different skills, I've got this, I've got that. And they said, no, your personality, how do you differ? How can you fit into the team? And it was a really good question, because obviously, and I thought this was a bit of BS, but speaking to other people in my life who work in HR, work in business, etc., they've all said that companies no longer really look for, obviously they want people with the experience they desire and the experience that's going to make them able to do the job, but they're also looking for people to fit into that team. If they're hiring, someone like, my title would be paid social executive, so kind of lower down in the team. But if they're hiring that one person in the team to make it a full team, they want to make sure that that person can fit in, because you don't want 5 leaders in a team, do you? You want people who are going to ask for support, or those that are going to lead on a team. You want different types of people, and I absolutely love that. And I love that, people in my life back that up, because I thought that was a bit of, do people really do that? But no, companies are looking for people, which is why talent acquisition recruiters, it's more than just finding a good CV. It's people who care about the job. It's people who show that kind of different personality. They are looking for different people, and people that the line manager or the person who says, right, I want to hire someone, they're going to ask them the kind of person they want. And that's what recruiters do. And it's so exciting and interesting that there's more than anything that goes into it. It's not just working in social media. It's not a pretty portfolio or a really good CV with 10 different experiences on it. It's those with different things. Not gonna lie, having a blog and a podcast and my language skills really jumps out to people, because it's different things that people have, or working on different projects in the past. Even if you put different uni projects, if you're a social media manager of a society, things like that, people really like to see, because it's just different things that other people might not have done. Working with different charities, doing freelance stuff, doing different things on the side is something that really stands out, and they know that you're not just all about work. Obviously, I'm a workaholic, but I do love doing the different things on the side to make me, and it's not for my CV. A lot of people, I remember when, if you remember, or if you're doing it now, applying to UCAS, applying to universities, so many of my friends were trying to put all these things down, DV, volunteering at homeless shelters, all these things, and obviously they're good things. I'm not saying they're bad things, but they were trying to fill out their UCAS form, their personal statement. You don't have to. People were doing it for, I'm going to say recruiters, but for the universities. But you're good enough with what you've done, and what you're interested in. If you're not interested in volunteering, which, I hope people are, but if you're not interested in that, then don't do it. It's kind of falsifying who you are. If, on a CV or a job application, they say, we want someone who is willing to learn and test new things and not just always stay with like the old times of this is how you do it, this is, like I'm not going to change my mind. If you're someone who likes to stick to the rules, don't apply to that job. Like it's much easier when applying to jobs than you think. But also on top of that, if you look at a job description and you've got some of the experience, not all of it, you've not used a certain platform before, apply anyway. A lot of people now, like in the job descriptions, right, even if you don't have all these skills, like we'd still love to hear from you. And it is that because for the jobs that I've applied for, I didn't have loads of experience in paid social before I joined Pure Gym. I had a bit of experience with things like Facebook, but not on other platforms. It was that kind of thing where they knew I was going to be good at learning through the other skills I have. So don't just put, I don't know how we've got onto CV talk, but don't just put on your CV like, I've done this job, this job, this job. Put other things you've done, like even stuff like, I was first team hockey captain, like things like that you might not think is going to be helpful. Obviously, when you're just applying for like your first job, say you're a grad student and you're just going into the world of work and you might not have any experience, you might have gone from school to uni, you've not worked a day in your life, other than maybe working at like Primark with a local shop part-time, Are you going to put that on your CV? Yes. You have to put everything on that, and you are going to put your GCSEs, your A-levels, the clubs you did at school, the societies you joined at university. You are going to put those things in there. They don't have to relate to the job you're applying for, but it's useful to have that when you're building up your CV. And I know I'm only 21, but I'm moving on to my fourth job now. Like, I do have experience, and I've done quite a lot so far, without sounding cocky, but like, now my CV looks completely different to how it did with my first job. But what I would recommend, and this is me getting into kind of career advice, I would recommend trying to do something. So say you really want this job or you want to work in this job field, go online, if you have time, if you've just finished exams, go online, do a Coursera or Future Learn course, or even on LinkedIn you can do courses as well. They're free. Do some courses in that industry. If you want to go into social media, look at content marketing, look at paid social, look at how to go viral on social media. Do little courses like that, put that in your CV. Or, research the company, have something to talk about in your cover letter, for example. Don't just make it this is what I did at uni, but if that's all you've done, that's fine too. Try and add a couple other things in, but also look at the industry you want to go in. Don't start applying to 5,000 different job types. Find an industry you're interested in, because that might be what you want to do now. You might go into that job for a year and think, don't want to do this. You can go elsewhere. A lot of people don't think you can change career paths, but trust me, you can. And, if you're in the wellness sector, you can go into tech, or you can go into, I don't even know, clothes. Exactly. You know what I mean? You don't have to stay in the same industry too. Like, you can do so much with work, and that's what isn't spoken about enough with planning a CV, cover letters, what jobs to apply for. Even if you did history at uni, you don't have to apply to jobs with history. You know what I mean? Like, you can go into anything. People don't really care about the degrees you have. Like, all the jobs that I've applied to and have been interviewed for say that they want someone who has a bachelor's and more likely in marketing or digital marketing. I don't have a bachelor's and definitely not in marketing. I have a diploma in languages, but because of my experience I have. But ignore that experience. Even if they say that, if you have another degree in something else, cool, that they'll want to see that. But if you don't have a degree, if you didn't go to uni, still apply to it, because you never know, they might still want to interview you. They say that because that's a desired thing they want. It's not an essential thing, and companies shouldn't really want that essential thing anyway, because they know that so many people, especially in social media and digital marketing, don't go to uni. A lot of people are applying when they're 18, straight out of school, like they want to start the industry early. I'm glad I went to uni because it gave me that leg up with, I know languages, and as I've said, like I've used it in every job I've had, and it's been so interesting to do. But yeah, it's about, long story short, with CVs and applying to jobs, as I know a lot of people right now are leaving uni and trying to get into that world now, apply to jobs that you are going to like. First of all, you're not going to know if you're going to like it, but something that you're interested in. Don't just do it because it's 35k, it's a grad scheme, it's, you get a company card. Don't do it for that. Go for a job title and job description that you really do like. Ignore the money, because the first job you have is probably not going to be a lot. Look at somewhere close to home so you don't have to move out, you don't have to pay rent. And make sure your CV matches it. Even if you're like, fuck, I've done none of that, do a few courses. Just spend a day doing them. You don't need to do loads of them. 2 or 3, put that on there. And put down things like the societies you did. If you play an instrument, like stuff like that. It might sound so silly to put on, but that's who you are. They want to know who you are, especially if it's a grad scheme. They're looking for that. Talk about your favourite module at uni. Make your CV stand out in a way that it's not just, I went to uni, because that's not going to look good. In your cover letter, write something about the company, but also show them who you are. Don't talk about necessarily, I can play the violin in your cover letter, and this shows that I'm really clever. Like, I don't know, but write about those little experiences you've done, or I've done this course and this makes me really interested in doing this, blah blah blah. Like, do stuff like that. Think about, if you did go to uni, your personal statement. That is what a cover letter is also. You talk about yourself, and people who say they struggle writing cover letters or struggle in interviews, you're talking about yourself. It should be the easiest thing you can ever do. And now, kind of getting onto the interview thing. I know we're talking about mental health and I'm kind of being all forceful about jobs now, but I don't know, I think this might be helpful for a few people to be wary of as well. But before I get into the kind of mental health side of it as well, interviews are the easiest thing in my opinion. As long as you haven't lied on your CV, on your cover letter, anywhere, you can embellish. Of course you can embellish. You can say you've learned all of this, but you only know a bit of it. But be prepared to do some research on that if you've said that, you know what I mean? But you can embellish, but you can't lie, because they're going to know straight away if you've said something and you haven't done it. I have been there once where I applied to a job thinking it was one thing, and even though the cover letter was about, I think I applied to do, I thought it was social media, but it was actually digital marketing, so it was email marketing. And I didn't realise that until like 10 minutes before the interview. It was online. And I was like, shit, I've not done a lot of email marketing. So I just talked about my experience, not in email marketing. I talked about anything else and they still liked me. So I'm not saying do that, because I was shit scared when that happened. But also, yeah, don't lie, because they're going to know. If you did what I did, kind of waffle your way through and say your other experience until they ask you a question. But an interview should be the easiest thing you do, because you know your experience. If you know your experience well, and you know, okay, this job, I had these strengths, I did this. If you remember your jobs, for example, if you know what you've done and how you contributed to that team, you're going to do fine in the interview. So many people stress about them, and I don't know why, because they're easy. Like, it's about you. You're literally talking about how good you are. Like, I know a lot of people struggle with that. Like, I struggle with praise quite a lot, but in an interview, I was saying to my mum the other day when I got this job offer through, and she was like, you should become, later in life, you should be a career advisor or an interview coach. Not a life coach, but like an interview coach. And I was like, I should, because in interviews, I do well. I always get to the final stage. The job I want, I tend to get. With each of these jobs I've had, it's always been the job that I wanted. And it's really interesting with that. I don't know, it's really exciting to know that I'm good at an interview, but it's then, how do I keep that job is the issue. Commitment issues apparently, but interview shouldn't be hard. It's the easiest thing you should do. The hardest bit should be going there and accepting the job and learning a whole new way to do things. Even if you're going into the same job role, they might use different platforms, they might use different systems, they might use new modern ones, they might use older ones. Like, you don't know how they're going to run things. Yeah, your experience is going to be useful, and your knowledge and your opinion on how to do things is going to be useful, but ultimately you have to do it their way, and that's the hardest thing sometimes. Even if you're going into something so simple, like, I don't even know, but if you're going into something so simple to you, like, and you're like, there's no other way to do this, you never know. So interviews should be easy. The hard part is actually doing the job itself, and fitting into the team, I think, as well, as I've said before. But then, looping back around now to the kind of point of talking to you guys today about mental health. I did a post on LinkedIn about this during Mental Health Awareness Week. Actually, I did one post about mental health in the workplace. It wasn't slagging off anyone or the company at all, even though I got loads of shares from people in my company, which was interesting to see. I did a post about just Mental Health Awareness Week, how companies and managers should be looking after their team and checking in on people, etc. And bearing in mind, this week was during the month that has just gone by and all the stress I've had, which was really good timing. And, there was no check-ins, there was nothing like that. But did a post then and did a recent post about me leaving the company, etc. And I've had loads of nice comments on it saying, thanks for speaking up about this, because people don't. And leaving a company, leaving a job that I absolutely loved because of my mental health makes me realise how important it is to prioritise your health. Because if I had been prioritising me throughout this whole time, I wouldn't have to leave. I know it was because of also my manager, etc. Maybe I still would have, but obviously I don't want to look back saying, oh, I wish I did this, wish I did that, would have, could have, should have, etc. Like, I don't want to think that way. But at the same time, if you prioritise your health from day one, you're going to thrive. And, some things might happen along the way, like team members, etc. But things might happen, things might not. So when I had to leave, this was a big epiphany for me, because I've not been prioritising me at all. I said, even though I knew I wanted to leave, I was still working very, very late at night. When I was ill, when I was stressed out of my mind, when I was burnt out, I was still working all the time, which is just toxic. And I know there's a lot of you out there very similar to me, which even though you're like, oh, I'm going to resign, you're still going to push yourself to the absolute limits for it. Or if you know you can't do any more than you're doing, you're still going to find a way to do something. And it's so sad that it's the case that I've had to do that. And it might sound Gen Z of me to be like, well, you have to go somewhere that prioritises your mental health and your well-being. I don't think it is. I think it's an essential. It's not a desirable thing in a company. It's not something that you, like a perk of a company to say, we look after your mental health. When they put benefits and stuff at the end of a job description, it shouldn't be a perk. It shouldn't be a benefit to have access to EAP or therapy, etc., or personal days or mental health days. It should be an essential. It shouldn't just be allowed. It should be an essential. You should be allowed to text your manager saying, look, I'm having a real shit day. My mental health is not great. I'm very burnt out. Do you mind if I just have a nap or just, log off for the rest of the day and I'll do it in the morning? That should be allowed. Okay, yeah, if you've got really important meetings, if you've got something really important to do, that's something else that you've got to battle on your own, I guess. But you should be allowed to log off and switch off for an hour to just go, get your head straight or go for a walk or whatever it is that's going to help. It should be an essential. Because as I've seen, as a lot of people have seen, if you keep going at the rate that the company's pushing you to, or that you're pushing yourself to because that's what you think you're supposed to, you're just going to burn out and then kind of fail at your job more if you think you're failing, which you're not. You're just, learning. And I don't want to sound all like, oh, people never fail. Of course you can fail. Of course you can fuck up at times, but you're still learning through that. Like, I've learned so much. And I said this to my boss when I saw him Tuesday to hand in my things. I said this, I was like, thank you for this opportunity, because I've learned so much personally about a company, about where I want to work. And he really respected that. He was really apologetic about what happened and he wished me well and he was lovely about it. It was a shame that my line manager is actually on holiday this week when I've decided to do this, but I didn't want to see her, to be honest with you. It was quite a nice ending to it. It sucks that you have to put your health first in these situations. It does suck because you want to keep doing well. If you're like me, you're productive, you love your job, you're a workaholic. It sucks that you've got to be like, right, actually, this is a red flag here. I need to leave. I need to prioritise me. It's really hard to deal with, and I have battled with that a lot. Not in terms of I don't want to leave the company. Of course I didn't want to leave. But the thing that I had to stop because of the way I am from a health perspective, and it's made me think, shit, why have I not been prioritising myself all this time? I could have prevented this from happening. And it's very common, and even if you don't have an eating disorder or an anxiety disorder or anything, everyone has a mental health. Everyone struggles day to day. There's other things going on in your life. People, everyone goes through grief. Everyone goes through breakups, friendships, whatever. Everyone goes through the common things in life. Some people then might have disorders or conditions or health problems. Obviously, people have their own issues. I know issues is not the right word, but their own things going on in their life, right? Everyone has a bad day. Everyone wants to log off work for a month because they're struggling so much. Everyone goes through that, whether you have depression, anxiety, or anything like that. Everyone goes through that. I'm not saying, like, I think the point here is that I'm not saying that having a disorder is going to make you stand out and you're having a worse time than anyone else. No, because I know that people struggle all the time. But the worst thing is at work, especially when you have a big workload and you're going through something as well. You'll know, especially if you're kind of younger and you're kind of lower down in the team, if you have a big workload, you know that your boss is going to have a bigger workload. It might be a busy time of the year, like it might be peak season for you, or there's a product launch coming out. You know, everyone in the company is going to be busy, so you feel like you can't ask for help. But if you're at a company where they actually respect the fact that you can struggle, which I didn't realise my company was like that, but it was too late when I realised that. I'm not blaming myself for it at all, but I didn't believe it at all. I was like, there's no way you're going to help me. And at the end of the day, they didn't. So yeah. But your mental health has to come first. You can't keep pushing to the limits, because I am someone who does that. I love working my arse off, even if there's no goal with it. I just love working every day. Like the next month I'm going to be working, obviously not with like an actual job, but I'm going to be doing stuff every day because that's what I love to do. But at the same time, make sure, especially in this month where I'm not actually working, I schedule in more self-care time and more look after my mental health time than sat in front of my computer. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, even getting my podcast mic out, you know, this is what helps me a lot as well, trying to process things that are going on. Mental health is so important, and I know there's so much stigma and talk about it all the time, but you have to prioritise it, because otherwise you're going to end up like me, you know, you're going to end up having to leave a job that you love so much and then struggle to find another one. I am very fortunate that I do have a job lined up. I know it should be more of, I wish I had more time off. I feel like I do need a few months off, but I still need to work. I still need money. I can't just have time off, and that's a big problem, I guess, as well. But it's that idea that if you don't prioritise yourself, you're going to end up losing your job. You're going to end up not being able to work or do your favourite thing, and it really does suck. And I'm sorry for other people who have gone through this, and it's that realisation afterwards that you could have done more to prevent it. You could have done more. But also don't think that you failed yourself or that you've let yourself down, because those are thoughts that I've had recently. That's just, you know, I was struggling and I couldn't pick myself up. I couldn't show up for myself. But now I can. Now I can make sure for the next job, I am going to show up. I am going to make sure my mental health is put first. Not saying that, you know, I'm not going to go to the office because I'm having a bad day. To some extent that is true, but make sure, you know, I'm still working, but focus on my mental health in the background so that I can continue working and that I won't need time off, or you know what I mean. Of course you can struggle during the work day and you can ask for the time off. Of course you can do that, and it's about knowing that you can. And, you know, if you are having a mental health bad day or whatever, don't lie and say, oh my God, I've got a massive headache, migraine, I can't work today. Don't lie about it. Just say, hey, look. So it goes on your record, so people know that you are struggling. And it might be the fact that you do have too much work, you do have too much going on. Always be honest, and even though it's so hard, like I've learned this, and I thought I couldn't be honest and tell them that you have anxiety, that you have things going on in your life. Be open with your manager so that they know as well. So if they start seeing mistakes, which, you know, this happened with me, if they start seeing things that are going wrong in your work, they might have some leniency with it and be like, are you okay? Do you need a few days off? Have that relationship with them so that you can work together. It's about working as a team. You know, I said that companies look for those people who are going to fit into the team, and that's going to help you with that management style, with that support in the team, and also the things that you're going through. You're going to be good at spotting when someone else is going through something, because sometimes people don't speak up and people don't ask for help. It's not your job to make sure they get the help, but you can go to them saying, hey, do you want me to do this today instead? Do you want me to lead on this meeting instead? Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? And it will just help them. Obviously prioritise you first, but with you doing that, you'll start to pick up on other things that other people might be going through. So to wrap up this episode, I want to leave you thinking about a few things. First of all, if you're someone going into the work world now, maybe you've just finished uni, maybe you're 18, maybe you're changing your career path, think about what you truly want in a job. Obviously, your first job out of uni, you're not going to have much choice in what it's going to be. You're going to take the first grad scheme that comes up. You're going to take the first job that comes up because your parents might have pressure on you, or you have to get a job soon, whatever that pressure is, or, you're 21, 22, you're like, right, going into the work world, make sure, you go into that job knowing that you are going to be okay, because especially in grad schemes, there's a lot of pressure. In any world of work you go into, in any field of work, there's going to be an element of being fast-paced. You want to be in a fast-paced company because that's where you learn the most as well. But know that you're going to be okay to do that. Know that your mental health or your physical health or any other thing you're going through is going to be okay during that. And make sure, at uni, if you were the girl that journaled and looked after your mental health and did self-care, if you were that person, make sure you carry that on. I know you're back at home or you've moved out or you're in a different place, you can still go for that walk, you can still go through that journal time in the morning, just find a different room to do it in, a different space to do it in. You can still keep those up even if the kind of circumstances have changed in your life, that you're not in the same place anymore, for example, because I know that that's what happened with me. I just kind of lost that, especially going into full-time work. I was like, I don't have time to journal, I don't have time to go for a walk, I don't have time to have a bath, all these things. I don't have time to do that because I need to work. Prioritize that first. So get into a routine before that job starts. Get into a routine of, okay, if you finish work at 5 or you're going to be home at 7 o'clock, start doing that routine now. Get into a habit of putting yourself first outside of your job. In the spare time, it's okay to go to the pub, to go out, to meet your friends, to stare at Netflix all night. It's okay to do those things too, but make sure you have at least 5 out of 7 days of a week where you're prioritizing you. That might be with a friend. That might be, you need that social time to go out for dinner with someone, but make sure you prioritize you first. So make sure you have that routine. Obviously, if you weren't that girl or whoever at uni and, you were just in bed studying all the time or getting up really late, now's the time to start doing that routine without putting the pressure on yourself. Like, if you always got up at 11, 12 o'clock at uni, it is a bit daunting to know that you're going to have to wake up a lot earlier when you start work. Try and do that a little bit. No pressure, just try and get into a little bit of a routine where you're going to be okay waking up. Obviously, not everyone's a morning person. I used to be waking up at 5 a.m. every day. God, I don't want to do that now, even though I'm going to be doing that twice a week, and I was doing that anyway, going to Leeds once a week. But try and get into a better routine before. It doesn't have to be now, even if you start in 3 months' time. You can do it closer to the time, but make sure you're aware and be prepared for that change. Even if you're going into a different job, if you've been in the work world for a few years, you're going into a different role, make sure you prioritise that. Because it might be, you're in the office more or you're working from home more. It's going to be a change either way. The commute might be longer. Make sure you're still doing those things that make you okay. Obviously, you can slip, you can spiral, you can have breakdowns, you can struggle, but make sure you've got those things going on to prevent that happening more often, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And if you are in the work world right now, I want to leave you with this question. And I put this on my LinkedIn. I mean, I know probably none of you follow me on LinkedIn, but the question is your mental health a priority right now? Or is your career a priority? And it's a hard question, because you could answer me saying, and this is how I would have answered it, a few days ago, my job comes first. I'm 21 and I need to make sure I'm on the career ladder now. And that answer is worrying. On one side, being a workaholic, being driven, having the ambition is an amazing thing. And, it's something which people talk about all the time. But when it goes into hustle culture, like 5 a.m. club and all of that, that's when there's a bit of toxicity, a bit of concern. Obviously, if that works for you and you are honestly okay and you love working until God knows what time in the evening and it is your whole life, if you are honestly okay, that's fine. But check in on your mental health. Because if you are this 5 a.m. club that you do all that self-care in the morning, or you do it late at night or whatever, that's fine too. Like, if you are honestly like that morning person, if you're honestly that person who gets to the office 2 hours early and leaves 2 hours late, if you love doing that, which, I do love doing too, that's fine. But make sure you check in on how you're actually doing, because it can be so easy to just glance over it and not understand it at all. Make sure you check in on yourself. Even if you're okay, if you are 100% okay, you still got to make time for self-care to make sure you don't become not okay, I guess. But ask yourself that question if you are in the work world right now. is your mental health a priority over your career? Because it should be. You should always come first. And this is what my manager said to me at work when I first joined, when I first started talking to her about these issues. She said that, you come first. Obviously, that wasn't the case going into it. She changed her mind about that one, but you do come first. And if that means you have to leave, if it means the company doesn't believe in that either, and they still put loads of pressure on you to do it, they're like, well, everyone has struggles, you're fine, leave. You want to be somewhere that supports you and that you can be open with your manager and say, hey, I need help. That's okay too. Ask for help when you want to. Not when you want to, but when you need to. You need to ask for help. Otherwise, you're just going to struggle and then end up leaving like me. But on this note, I hope if you're going into the work world, or if you're carrying on, you're going to a new job, for example, I hope that you're okay, and I hope you're doing it for the right reasons. Not to climb a career ladder, but because you want to. You want this new job. You want to start in this new industry. You want to make a difference. You want to do it for you as well. Not because your parents told you have to be a doctor or a lawyer, but because you really want to do it. And yeah, on that, I hope you are okay. I'm always here if you want to chat. I mean, I'm starting my podcast back up again now, and it feels good. It feels good that I have the time now to focus on this. So I hope you're doing well. And if you're not, I hope you're putting those things in place to prevent any more slip, any more, struggles with that. I hope you're making time for yourself. You're allowed days off. You're allowed time off. You're allowed to relax so that you don't get ill, physically, mentally, etc. That's what I'm doing now. I'm making sure I have time. I mean, I've got a horrible UTI right now, so I'm not going to the gym. I feel just well enough to do this podcast. So I hope you're okay, and I will speak to you guys very, very, very soon, because I'm back on it now. I'll see you on my socials and my blog if you do follow me. If not, I'll leave it in the show notes. But for now, have a good week and enjoy the rain if you're in the UK, because it's very shit weather, but enjoy it, put a fire on. I'm tempted to get my blanket out or my slippers and just pretend it's autumn, because I wish it was autumn right now. But yeah, love you guys and have a brilliant week. Goodbye.